We've all met Portra, Provia, Velvia, Ektar, and these days Phoenix. We've watched countless YouTube videos of film photographers wandering around shooting these wonderful film stocks and providing beautiful images. These film stocks look great. They perform great. They've got wide dynamic range, and the images that you get are just awesome. But in the year of our Lord, 2024, these film stocks are really expensive. And folks like me and you, we're out there trying to save a few bucks where we can. In this video, I went basically onto the dark web. What I mean by that is Alibaba, Aliexpress, and bought a couple of rolls of the cheapest film stock that I could get my hands on to see how it performed. Welcome back to Overexposed, where you never know what you're gonna get, a 2-hour video essay or a 10-minute video of me shooting $2 film. Let's go. On this channel, we've had the top shelf stuff. We've had the Blantons, the Weller, the Pappy. But in this video, we're going to the Kentucky Gentleman. As I pointed out there in the intro, every once in a while, I get a wild hair and take a look around Aliexpress. You never know when you're gonna need some fake Pokemon cards or a hoodie for your gear shift. But I was kind of taken off guard when I figured out that you could buy film on Aliexpress. And from where I'm sitting, it looks like they're doing something that's very popular these days, and they're taking rolls of movie film stock largely, cutting them up, putting them in canisters, and selling them to you and I. And we can take a look at everything that's offered on Aliexpress and see that it all kind of fits that mold. But being the curious little guy that I am, I wanted to see how low we could go. And I stumbled onto this film stock right here, these discreetly branded rolls of black and white film. There were a couple things that are interesting about this film. Number one, these film stocks look like they were printed off someone's copier, and that someone also didn't have very much of an eye for aesthetics. I don't know, they've actually kind of got a black and white space shuttle look going on. Maybe that's the aesthetic they were going for. Another thing that's really interesting about these rolls of film is they're not packaged in the traditional way that film is, with like 24 or 36 exposures. These have 8. So while I was out shooting with my Contax T2, I decided to pop a roll of this stuff in and see what happened. The first image I took was outside of my office window. No divine beauty here, nothing too artistically focused, just a pretty normal day, overcast skies. Nothing too dramatic here going on, just a couple of sexy Buicks. But if you want to zoom in here, you can actually take a look at the film grain and see that it's a pretty grainy boy. There's quite a bit of tones there, as the folks on Reddit would say. And this one is looking slightly down the street from the previous image. You can see, like I said, it's an overcast day, and this image shows the dynamic range of this film stock, which is to say, not that great. You can look at the back of the traffic line here, and there's not much detail left there, or the detail in the tree. And once again, there isn't much left. And it looks like there's also a lot leak here, which is right in the center. And it's not a problem with my Contax T2 because it doesn't appear on any of the other 8 or 10 rolls that I had developed with this lot. So that's a fun feature. I shot this image when I was in my hotel, and you could see the sun was setting, and I had the sun kind of lined up right here on the edge of this scaffolding, mainly testing to see what the Sunstar capabilities of my Contax T2 were. That being said, again, not much dynamic range to the shot. You can almost make out the balconies inside the hotel here. This was actually inside looking up at the roof. And here's a shot. I was in Covington. You can see on the right side of the image, that's downtown Cincinnati. Over here, I'm on the left. I'm at one of the hotels there in town. And I'm just looking down the Ohio River. You can see these bridges off in the distance. And honestly, this is a pretty nice shot. Again, the dynamic range isn't all that great. The blacks are almost dropping out. Again, this actually looks pretty good. And I think the lesson here is that when you've got plenty of sunlight with one of these film stocks, they actually do an okay job. But that's basically photography, isn't it? And here I am again. This is a little amphitheater on the side of the river there in Cincinnati. It's all concrete, and you could see that I was trying to go for this nice artistic swooping to the left, up and to the left motion here. I think this shot actually looks pretty darn good. Again, not a ton of contrast with this stuff, but an okay image nonetheless. And you can zoom in, you can see, and again, you can zoom in here and see that the Contax 2 actually manages to capture quite a bit of detail. The Carl Zeiss lens is actually pretty darn good. And here's looking across the river over into Cincinnati. You can see many of the skyscrapers there, the kind of cloudy day. And again, plenty of sunlight. So the image actually looks pretty great. And let's zoom into these buildings. And you can actually make out some of the fine detail in the stones and the windows of these buildings and the cables holding the suspension bridge up. Pretty nice shot. And once again, this is another picture of the bridge. You can zoom in and see that There's actually some kind of weird streaks there. I don't know what those are from. Maybe those are part of the film stock as well, or maybe that was from the developer. But either way, again, pretty good detail. Not my favorite black and white film stock of all time. Basically, anything from Ilford is probably better. So, about the image quality of this stuff, in short, it's not that great. But I have to say, it's actually better than I thought for $2 a roll. Let's be clear, over anything Ilford these days is around about $10. So at $2 a roll, pretty darn cheap and pretty good images, I mean, all things considered. The images all have pretty consistent themes that I think you can see. When there's plenty of sunlight, the contrast increases. When there isn't a lot of sunlight, the contrast really, really drops. It also appears from looking at the images that the dynamic range isn't that great either, and that's pretty consistent. The blacks are just dropping out. There is quite a bit of detail, specifically when there's plenty of sunlight though, and I think overall the images look okay. They look okay. You guys think they look okay? But let's talk about the value proposition of this film stock. That's why we're here. After all, it's $2.47 a roll. Pretty darn cheap. And on first blush, you may be thinking, pretty good deal, that stuff. And if you're developing it at home, probably it is. You don't have to waste a lot of chemicals because your rolls are going to be really short, and you can just fire the stuff off no problem. And at least for my part, a lot of times I don't shoot all that many images in one sitting. And having the ability to pop the roll out after 8 or 10 shots is pretty darn sweet. So that's pretty cool. If you're developing this stuff at home, you do get the benefit of the rolls being $2.47. But me being a very busy working attorney with trials set all the time and having kids and a wife and lots of folks that need my attention constantly, I'm very busy and I don't develop my film on my own. Life is just too chaotic for that for me right now. So I send my film away. And here's the problem. If you're actually sending your film away to a developer, the value proposition just completely falls to pieces, right? Because they're not giving you a discount at the darkroom because the film was only 8 shots on a roll. So that's the rub here. If you're buying this film to save some money, if you're developing it yourself, maybe there is a cost savings there. If you're sending it to the darkroom who charges 10 or 11, 12 bucks a roll these days to develop your film, the value proposition just completely falls apart, right? It's $2 for the roll, but the development cost is the same and you're not getting a discount because the roll is so small. So that's something worth knowing. If you're tempted by these film stocks on Alibaba, if you're committed to developing your own stuff, you can save a little money with it. But if you're not developing your own stuff, you're probably best to just stay with the thick boys, the 36 roll exposures. So if you thought this video of me shooting cheap Chinesium stuff was cool, check out this other video where I shoot a cheap Chinesium Instax camera. But as always, guys, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.